Well, hello, everybody. This is Dr. David Jockers, and today I'm talking about keto and carb cycling for women. So, different strategies that women can apply. And this video particularly is going to be for menstruating females, but I will do a video on postmenopausal and perimenopausal women in the future. But we're going to really go into the female cycle and talk about really the best times for low carb. If you're going to carb cycle or increase your carbs, when would be the best time for that? So most of you guys understand how ketosis works, but basically a general overview of it is most people are burning sugar. They're sugar burners and sugar cravers because of the standard American high carbohydrate diet. Most of us were raised on bread and starches. And when we do that, we release a hormone called insulin. It takes sugar out of the bloodstream and put it into the cells where it can be used for energy. And we teach our body to run off of glucose, okay? As opposed to the ketogenic diet when we're on a very low carbohydrate, high fat diet. And when we do that, glucose levels fall, insulin falls, and then our body says, okay, I need another fuel source. I can't run off of glucose. So it starts to break down stored body fat and also, of course, uses body or dietary fat, so fat that we're consuming in our diet. And it ends up turning these fatty acids into ketones in the liver, and those ketones slip right into the cell membrane, into the mitochondria, where they can be used for energy. And it is diesel fuel that gives us great energy, mental clarity, and performance, and helps us be a lean, mean, fat-burning machine. So it's really a desired state to be in, this form of ketosis. Now, if you're new to keto or ketogenic diet, I don't recommend just trying to go strict keto, very low carb, high fat right away. Instead, if you're transitioning, I recommend counting up the amount of carbs that you normally consume and then trying to cut it in half for week one. So you cut it in half, minimize your carbs during the daytime. So daytime hours, you minimize it and you eat a majority of your carbs in the evening time because our body tends to be more insulin sensitive in the evening as opposed to earlier in the day. And then also, as you can see here, week one, also do a daily 12-hour fast between your dinner and your first meal. This starts to transition your body into more of a fat burning state without being too extreme too quickly and having unwanted side effects. Week two, you would go keto during the day, cut your amount of carbs in the evening in half. So then you would cut it in half again. All right. So you cut it in half the first week, cut it in half the second week. And again, you consume those carbs in the evening. Okay. And then also, I recommend kind of trying to push, see if you can do your intermittent fast for 14 hours if possible. And then for the next 30 days after week two, that's when you try to go very low carb. You drop it to about 5% net carbs, about 70% of your calories from fat, 25% from clean protein. And then you're trying to maintain a daily fast roughly between 14 to 16 hours. Okay, so you can do a 16-8 where you're consuming your meals, let's say between 10 a.m. and 6 p.m. is a good 8-hour eating window. And you're fasting, not consuming calories between 6 p.m. and 10 a.m. the next morning, or it could be a 12 to 8. You find out that 8-hour window that works good for you. For some of you guys, it's going to be stressful on your body, too stressful, especially if you're somebody that's dealt with hypoglycemia in the past where you haven't been able to make it very long between meals. In that case, I would recommend doing more of like a 10-hour eating window where you're doing your meals, let's say from 8 to 6, 8 a.m. to 6 p.m., very realistic. And then fasting, just drinking water, herbal teas, things like that, between 6 p.m. and 8 a.m. the next day. So it's a really good strategy here. Now, let's talk about the female cycle. So female cycle is typically 28-day cycle. And first, day 1 through 5 is menstruation, where the uterine lining sheds and the woman bleeds. Day 14 is ovulation, okay, where the egg drops. And so day 1 through 14 is called the follicular phase. And then day 15 through 28 is called the luteal phase. Okay. And so let's look at the hormones that are dominant. The first 2 weeks, so that follicular phase, we tend to have more estrogen. Women have more estrogen. Okay. And it's building up the uterine lining is an important component of that. Estrogen is like a building hormone. The last 2 weeks, it's more of like maintaining and kind of toning it's more so toning the uterine lining. And then, of course, it sheds at the end for the for the menstrual cycle. And so that's where progesterone increases and it helps balance out estrogen. So this is normal menstrual cycle that goes on here. Okay, now obviously if somebody that is very estrogen dominant, oftentimes insulin resistance and estrogen dominance go hand in hand. So a lot of times that leads to weight gain, increased belly fat. So women that are overweight tend to be more estrogen dominant. Okay. And then also women that are in menopause oftentimes tend to be more estrogen dominant as well. Now, let's look at the cycle and look at the major hormones. So again, we talked about day 1 through 14. We have higher levels of estrogen, as you can see here, that will vary in hormones. Now, we also have hormones coming from our pituitary gland to help with this whole process of ovulation, particularly luteinizing hormone, LH, and follicular stimulating hormone, FSH. Okay, so these two hormones are elevated, they spike roughly in between days 12 and 15, roughly 12 and 15. They're spiking higher to help with the whole dropping of the egg, the fertility element. Okay, then right after that, progesterone increases, okay, and estrogen still increasing. As you can see, like estrogen drops a lot right at the time of the menstrual cycle, and oftentimes this is where women will have different that have cramps, cravings, lots of different things that can take place. Has to do with not getting the right hormonal mix here. Okay, but then progesterone rises for the second half of the phase. Now, during that follicular phase, okay, that day 1 through 14, we tend to be higher levels of estrogen. Higher levels of estrogen tend to be more insulin sensitive during that period of time, and that's the best time for carb cycling. We typically, for a lot of women, not all women, but a lot of women will crave carbs during this period of time, this day 1 through 14. And it's somewhat a sign that their body's telling them they need more carbs to trigger more insulin, to trigger more estrogen, because estrogen will follow insulin. When you stimulate more insulin, you tend to stimulate more estrogen. Now, it can be different for different individuals, but that is oftentimes the case. So if you're going to carb cycle, now look at the important note at the very bottom of this slide here. It says, if you feel great on the ketogenic diet, then there is no need for carb cycling unless you feel poorly or want to experiment and see how you feel. Okay, so it's like a lot of people will think about this and they think you have to carb cycle during this period of time. You do not have to carb cycle. There's lots of women out there that are doing absolutely fantastic on a ketogenic diet without carb cycling, so you don't have to. However, if you do not feel fantastic, then this is an experiment that you can try to still get the benefits of ketosis and to do it intelligently. So if you tend to be an overweight individual and you're insulin resistant, you've been in ketosis, verified by being in nutritional ketosis with blood ketones over 1.0, okay? You've been in nutritional ketosis and yet not felt great during this phase, this follicular phase, then carb cycling with maybe 50 to 80 grams of net carbs daily might really help you. It may help you, may be exactly what you need. So you can experiment and see how your body responds. Now, if you're otherwise healthy, you're not overweight, okay, but you're not very active in general, you're not exercising at the gym, doing strength training, things like that on a regular basis, then you might be able to handle up to 100 grams of net carbs daily. And if you are healthy, you're at a normal body weight, or maybe you're, a fitness athlete or you just engage in a lot of activity, you might need up to 150 net grams to really get the benefit here. Okay. And typically with this, you don't need to do this every single day. Okay. You might do it once or twice a week. Okay. So this sort of carb cycling is not necessarily every day, but you might say, okay, in my day 1 through 14, I'm going to do 2 carb cycling days where I'm going to do 100 grams, right? Or 80 grams of net carbs, see how my body responds. So again, this isn't every single day. This is from time to time. This is, once a week, twice a week, maybe somewhere in that range, maybe every other day, depends on your body. You want to experiment, really see how your body feels and responds. That's an important note here. Okay, now during the luteal phase, day 15 through 28, remember, higher progesterone levels, lower estrogen levels, And so you have lower level of insulin sensitivity. So you're typically less carb tolerant. You don't handle carbs as well. It's a great time to go very low carb. If you're going to carb cycle, so let's say you're doing well cycling out of ketosis with a higher carb day once a week or twice a week or whatever it is that you found, then I would do it with a lower level of carbs. Okay. And if you are very insulin resistant, then it's a good time to go, more lower carb, under 50 grams of net carbs, maybe under 20 or 30 net grams of net carbs, and really try to go dive deep into ketosis during this phase. But if you are very active, or if you're normal weight and you're enjoying carb cycling, then aim for roughly around 50 to 80 grams of net carbs if you're carb cycling during this period. So hopefully that was very, very helpful for you guys, and really helps basically just answer a lot of questions that I know many of you guys have. Now, I'm sure there's going to be a lot of people out here that are wondering, what do I do if I'm in menopause or perimenopause? I'm not menstruating like this. Hold on, I will do a video on that. And if you're listening to this later on, I've probably already done the video on it. So check that out for sure. And again, let me know if you guys have any questions on this topic. Would love to answer them in the comments section below. Bless you guys, and I'll see you guys for a future training. Bye.